Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is, of course, your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. First of all, I want to thank all of you for making it so that in our section on iTunes, now we're number 3 in the world. That's quite an accomplishment, and it is all because of you. A lot of you will share our podcast, you're sharing our newsletter, you're helping us get the word out that now is the best time to be in real estate, and probably arguably the last 30 years, especially for all the huge changes that are about to start happening for housing. We're going to be doing an updated podcast towards probably the end of this week about some more, frankly, very exciting things that Julie and I are learning about the future of home mortgage finance. Sounds kind of boring, but I assure you it will not be. And I don't know if you pay attention to the real estate headlines that are coming out of the Trump administration, but it does appear, as Julie and I did predict about a year ago, that a lot of the focus from the Trump administration is going to be on new construction. And Trump said something very interesting. He said that the builders are currently sitting on approximately 2 million undeveloped home lots. Some of them are developed, some of them are land that needs developed. But there you go. There's a large cure if you're, what ails you as far as lack of inventory nationwide. Obviously, they have to be in the right place where the demand is and all that good stuff and be building properties that houses or that the people can afford. But that'll be the things those will be the things that get worked out through this new Make Housing Great Again program. So pay attention to that. We're going to be talking more about that this week. And also, a lot of our podcast topics come from you. You'll give us suggestions and you'll give us ideas. You'll say more of this, less of that. You'll say this is a challenge I'm having in the marketplace. And what Julie and I will do is we don't necessarily directly answer your question, but you inspire us to create content around what your question is, because we assume that because you have that question or that challenge, there's probably literally millions of others, agents in the United States and worldwide do as well. So that is what today's podcast is all about. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be walking you through some of the things that happen between the bricks. So these are the mortar. Like imagine you're building a brick wall. And the whole brick wall the goal is to build the wall so you can take listings. So you're building essentially a wall, and the stronger the wall, the more the bricks there are, obviously the more chance you have of the wall tumbling over unless you have really, really good mortar. And so what this mortar is the thing that holds the bricks together so you can build this massive wall that's very thick and very strong and stands the test of time. But without that mortar, you're going to be stacking bricks on top of bricks, and all it's going to take is something to, toss over the beautiful wall that you've built, and you're going to be wondering, well, what the heck happened? So this is the answer to that. So what we're going to be doing for the sake of you, those of you who are chasing listings, is we're going to show you the little secret things that no one really talks about, no one really knows how to explain, but the top producers absolutely implement when they're going after listings and they're winning on listing appointments consistently. Julie?
Yes, that's right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that a lot of our content is listener inspired, coaching client inspired. And in fact, I wanted to remind a lot of our coaching clients that are going on tons of listing appointments right now, especially as of late. But in particular, Chris Leon in Chicago has set not 1, not 2, but 3 listing appointments in the past 3 or 4 days. He's turned on the heat and gotten a bit more aggressive, as well as Houston Heather, who is starting to go on more appointments. I think she went on 2 or 3 over the weekend as well. And the list goes on, but they're top of my mind because I'm talking to them both this week. So they and others requested, what do you do? What if you're competing? You want to get to the listing. So today's topic, 10 top agent habits that seal the listing every time. If you're going to go to a listing presentation, your job is to take the listing. Wouldn't you agree? It's not to just get to know you, right?
Well, it's too much work to go on a list just to even get to the listing appointment in the first place. I mean, you have to look nice, you have to show up on time, right?
Do a CMA, pre-qualify,
exactly.
follow the 7-step listing process, all that stuff.
And when you follow our 7-step listing process, especially when you've thoroughly pre-qualified, there's a saying Julie came up with, and it's in our book, Harris Rules: don't go if you don't know. So literally don't go, and this isn't what the focus of today's show is, but it's a list of things that you absolutely positively have to know prior to going on appointments. That way, when you walk in there, nothing is going to surprise you. You're going to know what the seller thinks it's worth. You're going to know if you're competing. You're going to know what the seller's time frame is. You're going to know if there's any, unrecorded debt on the mortgage. You're going to know all the things that are necessary for you to basically win that listing. And the mindset has to be, and you have to think this way, you take 10 out of 10 listing appointments you go on. And if you're just starting with listings, don't be fooled into thinking that 50% or 60% of the appointments you go on, you're going to win. You should be taking 100%, especially if you've pre-qualified, which is the first step after you've lead generated in our 7-step listing process. More of that is in Premier Coaching. And by the way, for the rest of this year, we're definitely going to be offering Premier Coaching for free for the first 30 days. And yes, that includes a new we're moving all of our Premier Coaching, which is a daily semi-private coaching session. We're moving it to a new platform where you're going to be able to directly interact with the coaches, not just asking questions, but you're going to see the other participants. You're going to have live conversation. We're bringing up the sense of community on Premier Coaching. So if you're in Premier Coaching now, we're going to be announcing that on the 11th. So definitely be tuning in and literally attending your daily coaching sessions. Those of you who are not yet in Premier Coaching, we've made it very easy for you. Immediate 30-day access to all of level one, including daily semi-private coaching call, as I just described. Just go to premiercoaching.com or click the link below in today's show description, premiercoaching.com, or click the link below. All right, Julie, let's get to it.
Yes, as you said, today we're assuming that you followed the 7-step listing process and you are going to the door. And even though you've pre-qualified and you've done all of those things, it is still possible to screw up a listing appointment. So we're going to give you the 30,000-foot view of this because you get more in coaching, of course. So top 10 agent habits that seal the listing every time. In real estate, your listing appointment doesn't start when you sit down at the kitchen table. It starts the moment that your door shuts. And we would argue it starts even before that, as we've talked about with the ramp up to this. But first impressions aren't just lasting, they're decisive. Sellers are observing everything, some consciously, some subconsciously. Your timing, your professionalism, your confidence, your energy. Winning the listing begins long before the conversation about comps or commissions. These 10 must-do habits separate true professionals, like our coaching clients and many of our listeners, from the rest and can easily become your new pre-appointment checklist. Again, the expectation is if you're going on the appointment, you're going to take the listing. So ready for number 1, Tim?
Let's go.
All right, number 1 should go without saying, but you might be surprised. Show up on time, or better yet, early. You are being judged before you knock on the door. Showing up on time or arriving 10 or 15 minutes early tells the seller that you're dependable, you're respectful, you're organized. It gives you a moment to gather your thoughts, check your materials, and mentally prepare. People form impressions within 7 seconds. There's lots of reporting on that. Some people say it in as short as 2 or 3 seconds. Punctuality sends the signal that you are a professional that values their time, and of course your time as well. Running late, on the other hand, creates unnecessary doubt before you've even said hello. So here's the pro tip. Use those extra minutes to visualize the appointment going perfectly. Get your head screwed on straight, as we say to our kid, even get the marbles in your head, get yourself ready to rumble. Energy and confidence follow your intention. And if you happen to find yourself there 30 minutes early, you don't want to knock on the door 30 minutes early just yet. Circle around the neighborhood. What do you observe? Is there new construction that you didn't know about right around the corner? Is there for sale by owner that you should stop at after your appointment?
Right. You should have known that prior to going in the appointment, what the competition was. But the point she's making is don't show up too early, but do definitely show up on time, if not a little bit early. You got it. The mindset is the seller's looking for reasons not to hire you. The seller's subconsciously looking for reason to be a skeptic about you, and showing up on time is definitely reason number one why they will discount you if then not completely decide not to hire you even before you take a step in the door. Point number 2, park like a pro. And this should be a very obvious thing. I'll go through this point, Julie. Sure. So when Julie and I used to sell real estate and we sold thousands of homes, one of the things that we learned the hard way when we were, first year in the business or maybe the second year is we were parking on a driveway where there was 2 other cars and their garage was, obviously next to the house. And the person went on the appointment, we were on time. There were supposed to be a husband and a wife there. The husband was late getting home. It was raining out or something. It was at night. It was dark. And I'm just, as I'm telling the story, I'm remembering more details. Well, Julie and I parked in the driveway. And what we did is we parked him out of getting into the garage. So he didn't want to park behind us because then when we left, he'd have to go out there and move his car. And he didn't want to park behind the other car because that was his kid who wasn't going to stay there very long either. So he ended up parking in the street. So he comes in the house and he's wet and he's grouchy. He probably had a bad day at work. And even before he basically has an opportunity to introduce himself and say hello to us, he's already basically mad at us for something we didn't even knowingly do. So, we ended up taking the listing, but he did make a suggestion as we were walking out the door that maybe we need to think about where we're going to park next time, because obviously it's going to create inconvenience for himself. And we had another situation where we parked somebody else in and we had to break the appointment up and we had to go out and move the car. Moral of the story is when you can avoid it, do not park in the driveway. Most of you are listing normal residential type homes, even if they're condos. Park someplace where you're not going to create an obstacle to people, coming and going. I mean, it's
just be considerate, and some of you guys are, driving cars that have your name and your realtor branding on them. The other reason, especially as we got more competitive, is you're just showing what listing appointment you're on. And maybe one of your competing agents lives in the neighborhood and drives by. And
Well,
now they know, there's lots of reasons to do this. And it's not something that you would have been taught by your broker in real estate school or anything like
she
that. So
brings up
just
a real,
don't create an awkward situation.
when we had a team, we had 4 or 5 full-size Suburbans, and we had our URL down the side of it in bright blue, and the whole thing, the whole things were stickered up. Each of, Julie and I both drove one. Our key team members drove them, and they're all over town. People would always say they saw the Suburbans, but she's actually bringing up a really funny point because that is exactly what happened. And another time we went on a listing appointment. One of the neighbors was a real estate agent. She ends up basically seeing we're parked in the driveway. We're there for an hour or whatever, 15, 20 minutes, long enough that she figured out that we were there for a listing appointment. After we leave, she goes and basically knocks on the door and talks to the seller into listing with her, not with us. After we had the contract signed. So we had the contract signed. We left. Seller calls us up. She then says, I'm decided to list with my neighbor. After all, she's my neighbor. And I just didn't realize she had a real estate license or was active or some. So we ripped the contract up. And that was that, our own dump vault for parking in the driveway.
Yes. And we could go on, but we digress.
We will,
Okay.
yes.
So, all right, number 3, another little known thing to think about, but can make or break the deal, and that's master the handshake. Number 3, now that we're out of fist bumping and wearing masks and all that kind of stuff for the most part, master the handshake. Your handshake communicates volumes. Firmness equals confidence, warmth equals trust, and aim for both. Avoid the extremes, which would be the bone crusher. Nobody really likes that. Or the limp fish. That's kind of weak, right? So you want to hit it somewhere in the middle, and of course make eye contact when you greet them. Now, if they're somebody that reaches out to fist bump you, maybe you're more familiar with them, then you can do that. But you want to at least practice your handshake. A confident, friendly handshake instantly establishes professionalism and trust. Again, practice if you need to. It's a tiny gesture, but it can set the tone for everything that follows. And I'm going to tee you up for after the handshake, Tim, your script at the door where you take a step back and you
That's
say to
right.
them,
Well, but before though, to the handshake
yes,
thing, that is especially true when you're a younger person
yeah,
because they're going to assume that you haven't been formally trained and how to behave professionally. So all these little tiny things. See, what we're doing is we're showing you the mortar that holds the bricks together, right? So now you've not parked in the driveway. Now you're, essentially it's not on the list
showed
yet.
up on time.
Showing up on time, maybe a little bit early. You're looking professional. We're going to talk about that in a second. But then the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to knock on the door. I'm going to walk you guys through it, micro steps, right? This is the mortar. You're going to knock on the door. You're going to take a little step back. Everybody's got a camera on their doorbell or whatever. They're going to see it's you. Hopefully you're dressed nice. You're not, you're professional after all. They open the door and you look them in the eye and you say, greet them and whatnot and say, listen, and do this, actually physically say this. Mr. Seller, before I take another step in your house, before I take another step in your door, I just want you to know that I'm 100% committed to getting this home sold. Now show me to the kitchen table and say it just like that. Now, when they open the door, what have you already done? You've already set yourself aside from the competition because you have lots of energy and enthusiasm. You're showing the fact that you actually can have you're focused on what you're here to do. You're here to help them sell the house. You're not here to socialize or, drink a beer. You're here to actually talk to them about selling the house. And most importantly, you've taken control right before you step in the front door. Now, when you take in the front door, let me see if this is next on Julie's. Nope.
Kitchen table's next.
Okay, nope. Before you go to the kitchen table, you're going to walk into the front door. And I want you to look to see if it's a shoes house or a no shoes house. If it's a no shoes, don't ask. Never ask if you should take your shoes off. If they're not wearing shoes, take your shoes off. That's just the rule. If they're wearing shoes, leave your shoes on. But if they're not wearing shoes, don't say, should I take my shoes off? Because they're always going to say no because they're going to be polite. But what's going to happen is they're going to cringe every single time they hear your clippity cloppity feet walking around their house that they've taken a lot of pride in to keep the floors clean. You guys understand what I'm saying? This is a little bit of psyops, psychological, operations here, but take it seriously because these tiny little things make all the difference, right, Julie?
Yes, that was actually number 4, respect their space. It just didn't sound like a shoe point, but yes, you make a point. And the other thing is some of you guys live in beach cities, right? So you're used to walking around in sandals or you're used to walking in sand. Some of you are living in places that get lots of sloppy weather. So even worse than hearing the clippity clop is somebody seeing whether you're tracking mud or dirt or dust or sand through their house. And they don't have to have white floors and they don't have to be not wearing shoes for you to respect that. So back to what Tim said,
Well, but also,
if they're not wearing shoes, you don't wear shoes.
if they're wearing shoes, leave your shoes on because there's probably a really good reason that they're wearing shoes in their own house. And you don't want to be the one that's going to end up stepping in it. But I digress because that's
Could be. That happened to me once. I took my shoes off and I stuck to the floor.
yeah,
I didn't realize it was like a rehab house. That's how you
well,
learn,
it
folks.
wasn't, Julie, technically it wasn't a rehab house. It was a house where the people were slobs. That's what it was.
Should be rehab.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that one because after the listing,
Yeah. Ew.
after the listing appointment, we took the listing, but Julie actually cried. And we sent the clothes. Seriously, this actually happened. We sent the clothes to the dry cleaner afterwards. And then the dry cleaner couldn't get the stink out because the whole house smelled so bad. It was just all these god awful smells, but the strongest one was cigarette smoke. So there you go. All right.
Also, I had, you remember that was the same house the dog was throwing the pig ear and
Yeah.
I was wearing silk, like light blue pants. I totally remember that.
Yeah.
And I had like dog slobber from
Okay.
head
Well,
to
since we're
toe.
telling this story, I wasn't going to tell it. The dog was also humping your leg the whole time.
Ugh, it was awful. Just more proof that we, actually sold real estate. Okay.
Yeah.
So we could go on. But the next one is bring positive energy. That is point number 5 on your checklist. You're not just a salesperson, you're a guest in somebody else's home, even if it smells like smoke and their dog is, a pervert. So bring warmth, curiosity, energy, and enthusiasm. Sellers want to feel their agent believes in their home and believes in the potential sale. Even if the property needs work, find something genuinely positive to highlight. Maybe that's just the backyard or some light fixtures or the floor plan, the location, or, positivity builds rapport faster than any script will. So here's your pro tip. Don't give them a grocery list of what's wrong with the house. You can talk yourself right out of the listing, even if you're right.
Well, don't start staging the house when you're there. You're
Right.
there just to do one thing, get the listing contract signed. You're not Bob Vila. You're not going to be doing a home inspection. You're not going to be giving them decorating tips. You're not going to be helping them move furniture. You're not going to try to teach their dog manners so that he doesn't molest guests. None of those things, right? Your job is to get the listing contract signed and get out. And we teach you in the Premier Coaching what happens after that if the house actually needs essentially conditioning work to get it for sale and get the most money for it. But that's not your job when you go on the listing appointment. It's also not your job when you go on the listing appointment to spend a lot of time bonding with them and, compare old notes and where you guys like to go on vacation, all that. All that fake friending stands in the way of you taking the listing because all it's going to take is for one of our trained agents to show up who's actually following a 7-step listing process and is a professional, and you will lose. And you will lose all the time because the seller is going to want to work with someone who's actually there to get the job done, get their home sold. They will play along with your fake friending because they don't want to be rude, but they don't like it. You're wasting their time. All right, next point, Julie. Point number 6 is don't assume the head of the table. I'll talk about this one.
Okay.
So
please.
when you walk into the kitchen and you're going to show me the kitchen table, right? Don't just, unless they instruct you to sit at the head of the table, don't just sit there because you're going to piss somebody off, right? You're in their environment. And the kitchen table is oftentimes where people sit down, and you don't want to sit at the dining room table. You don't want to sit out in lounge, in their lounge room in front of the TV or out by the fireplace or whatever the heck it is. You want to sit at the kitchen table. That's where important conversations happen. That's where they, pay their bills. That's where they're there. And, that's where family meetings happen, generally speaking, right? So sit where they tell you to sit. And if they don't tell you where to sit and they don't seem to care where you sit, or if the table's round, I'm going to give you another suggestion. If you're right-handed, you want to sit who you perceive to be the decision maker on your right side. You want to be careful that you are all being sensitive to who's the decision maker. Now, even if they're not, you don't want to split yourself. So don't be in the middle between spouse and spouse or partner and partner or whatever, and don't be across the table from them. If you can, if you're going to be at a square table and it's a square table, sit at one of the ends and have both of them sit beside you. The opposition stance when you're at a table, I know this seems like, well, this is such a silly little point, but it's a huge point because as soon as you set somebody across from you, they automatically take an adversarial role. Now, why do I say right-handed? Because if you're right-handed, you're naturally going to have all of your senses and all of your vision, sometimes even your hearing, is going to be better on the right side. Same goes with the left side. So make sure your power side is who is facing the actual decision maker. And it's been my experience for the most part that generally speaking, whoever is the decision maker is who's going to sit themselves beside you. Okay. That's how it's going to go about being done. All right. Let's go on to the next point, Julie.
All right, the next one is number 7. And this is another one that we learned, okay? Which is say yes to cookies or water or coffee. Not alcohol. That's rarely offered, but just in case.
You don't
But
have
yes
to
to
drink
cookies.
it. You
You
don't have to
drink
eat
it.
it. Right. You just say yes to it because
Well, it's not about the snack, it's about the connection. Okay. So when you accept their hospitality, you're saying, I appreciate your effort. They might have spent all afternoon baking cookies for you, right? So they might have been cleaning, prepping, even baking for you. So saying yes and thanking them warmly acknowledges the effort and makes you more memorable.
all right. So the next point is point number 8, and this is really important. Now we use Julie every time you go on a listing appointment. Let's assume that we teach you guys to get the listing contract signed while you're there. So don't make it so that you're like waiting and hoping and praying that they decide to list with you. We show you exactly what to do and say to get the contract signed while you're at the seller's house, not tomorrow, not the next day. So that's important. By the way, in sales in general, anytime someone says they're going to be back, they never are back. It's like the probability of getting someone to sign a contract after they've broken that initial appointment with you, you've met with them, you didn't close them, the chances of getting them back and working with you drops like less than half. And if it's the following day, it's even worse. They're going to change their mind. The mojo that you build up and the energy and enthusiasm that you had, how you made them feel, if you did it right, it's designed perfectly, our 7-step listing process, especially the pre-listing pack and all those things, to make it so you get the contract signed when you're there. Now, if you're for some reason not whether you get it signed there or maybe 1 out of 10 times you end up basically they want to sign it the next day, they want to pray on it or whatever their excuse is, that's fine, respect it. Obviously you need to send them something saying thank you for meeting with me. And what Julie and I always used to send is flowers. Even if you got the contract signed and you leave, still send them flowers. Even if you didn't, still send them flowers. The point is you want to show gratitude and be gracious for having had them, for them to choose you, to even consider you for the job of selling their home. They've honored you with that. And you need to thank them in a very formal way. Now, if you don't want to spend the money, that's fine. You could just write them a little handwritten card, but you need to get it to them right away. We did the flowers. They weren't very expensive. They weren't very fancy, but it was something that we would, if we didn't get the contract signed at the time we were at the seller's table, we have countless times, we listed thousands of homes, right? Where sending the flowers after the appointment was the thing that they said was the reason they decided to list with us, right? So maybe they met with 2 other people, and they met with Tim and Julie, and they're thinking about it, and they're going to make their decision the following day. We send the flowers, we get the listing. I know it doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it works.
True. That's
So
right.
just
And I would say, even when you do take the listing, or maybe especially when you take the listing, at least send the thank you card like immediately. We used to keep them in our car. So, yeah, it's just a classy and yet competitive way to be.
and digital is not the same thing as
It
flowers.
is not.
And
Neither is a text or anything like that.
right. And send it, if you're going to send flowers, the ones that people are most likely not to be allergic to are things like carnations. So, and by the way, they're
Something simple and professional.
yeah, exactly. It's just some, I think, Julie, what is
Token.
yeah, but isn't there a flower, a color isn't it yellow or something? There's a specific, manners.
A lot of flowers have different meanings, so you should definitely, I mean, don't send them red roses. That has a different meaning, right?
Yeah.
But when you talk to the florist, they're going to help you a lot. You can say, I just want a simple thank you, maybe something seasonal. It's going to be like daisies. This time of year, it's going to be mums, so just be sensitive to that. Now, number 9 is something we talk about from time to time. That is called stay out of the political danger zone. No politics, no controversial topics, no exceptions. Keep conversations about real estate, about their goals, and about your plan to help them. You are a Republican. You are there to earn trust, not to debate them. Neutrality is professionalism in action, and politics have nothing to do with selling their home.
Now, I will say, and I did have an interesting, I'll never forget this because it changed the way I think about that last point, the whole Republican point, is I was on a Zoom, and this was during, COVID, and with a gal in San Francisco. And I'd said that point, and it was a lot of people in the Zoom, and I noticed she raised her hand. She said, well, in my market, and she actually, realized that she was more conservative leaning in San Francisco, but she said, in my market, if
Mhm.
you're not literally, if you don't have signs in your front yard and you're not, socially involved and you're not essentially being very blue in your decisions and your presentation, politically speaking here, she said they're not going to do business with you. They just will completely blackball you. So she said, in my market, actually is a benefit for me to be politically involved. And the politics that I've gotten involved with are not really,
Not controversial
not
to
the,
stuff.
right, exactly. And I've worked, those folks have become my centers of influence. And I thought, well, okay, you win.
Well, so adjust accordingly, but
Right.
generally, if they don't bring it up and if you're not in that kind of an environment, don't be the one that goes down
Well,
that road.
most of the country is not red or blue. All right. And if you think it is, it's just because you haven't traveled to most of the country. We do. In most of the country, is politics do not come up. It's just not a
No, we
topic.
just got back from Raleigh, Durham, and I didn't hear a single political conversation. Did you?
Nope. No, not a single one.
Not once. And it was quite a mixed crowd too. So you would have thought you would have heard something. Absolutely nothing.
Point number 10,
10.
Julie, dress one level up.
Yes, dress one notch above your client or prospect. You don't need a designer suit necessarily, although, adjust accordingly, but you do need to look sharp, clean, and intentional. Every detail, your hair, your nails, your shoes, your watch, your glasses, even your pen speaks volumes about your attention to detail. If your laptop is ancient or your phone is cracked, it's also time to upgrade. There's a whole list in our Harris Rules book, right down to don't use an AOL email address, right? But visual presentation equals professional perception. Even using a nice pen, have your nails done, be presentable.
Julie, do you think there's even a single person watching or listening right now that knows what the hell an AOL email address is?
Yes, because I've seen, yeah,
They're like maybe three.
sadly, don't do it.
Well, if you guys are Generation X,
Upgrade everything is the
you guys
point.
are Generation X or older, you'll know what an AOL email address. You got mail. But all you millennials right now, Julie just made it sound like we're 1,000 years old. All right, so
That
yes.
is, let's see, we have an 11, I think, or do we? Nope, we just have a conclusion.
Well,
To
but
turn
Julie,
this, yeah,
Julie,
go
let's
ahead.
go back to the upgrade everything or the way of say if there's so when Julie and I, you know, started in real estate, we had no money. We sold over 100 homes our first year in the business, not bragging, just stating a fact. Never been done before. And as far as I know, never been done since. Individual home sellers, individual buyers. It wasn't just, it's subdivision or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but those weren't the cards we were dealt. So when we were getting started, we didn't have a lot of money. And so what we did is we went to consignment stores, thrift shops, and we bought our clothes there. And then if you look at our pictures, which are on Instagram of we put them up occasionally of our first year, no, none of our clothes fit. Well, that's the reason why eventually we figured out we could actually take them to a tailor and we could have the clothes. And then, after it wasn't our second year, we started buying our own clothes. But the point of it is there's no excuse not to look nice. And what Julie said, as far as looking one notch above, that is not something that anybody does nowadays. So if you're wanting to just this again, the mortar that holds the bricks together, you show what are all the things we told you guys? Show up early. I'm 100% committed to getting your home sold. Before I take another step in your door, right? Show me your kitchen table. Shoes, no shoes. You look nicer than every other agent coming because every other agent coming is going to look slovenly and they're going to say, I always want to dress like my prospector. They're just not even going to think about it. You show up in a nice looking blazer. You don't necessarily have to wear a tie if you're a guy or even a gal, I suppose. And immediately, subconsciously, they're going to see that you're different. They're going to feel that you're different. And so you followed our 7-step listing process. If you fully pre-qualified them, if you sent a pre-listing pack and the mortar that holds the bricks together, pre-listing pack is a brick. The mortar is these little things that we're telling you. The pre-qualification script is a brick. The mortar is the fact that you actually are then showing up early. You guys getting what I'm saying here? We can't put into our 7-step listing process the things that we're sharing with you today. And there's a lot of other little finite points that we're not going to be able to get to today in the half hour that we've got with you. All right. So Julie, do you have a bonus point or is this the final thoughts section?
Just the final thoughts. Preparation is persuasion. It's showing respect. Like our last point, if you're dressing for the part, you're showing respect. Winning with listings isn't about luck. I know some people have told you it's just a 50-50 shot. It's going to go how it's going to go, but that's not true. It's about disciplined preparation and thoughtful execution. Sellers decide who to hire emotionally, then logically, Every one of these small actions builds emotional equity before you ever present your marketing plan or your commission structure or talk about price. If you want to dominate every listing appointment, you've got to commit to not just mastering the 7-step listing process that you learn in Premier Coaching and in Elite Coaching. You've got to do all of these things as well to make sure that you secure that listing and to make sure that you secure their future business for repeat and referrals too. Remember the 7 P's of real estate. Proper previous planning prevents pitifully poor performance.
That's right. And so if you want these notes from today's podcast or any of our past podcasts, just subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. It's Harris Real Estate Daily, or the link is down below. And when you do subscribe to the newsletter, not only are the notes from that day's podcast, but the video from that day's podcast, but also a lot of other content we create just for the newsletter. Make sure you do that. That's taking the conversation from this podcast one step forward. So just go to Harris Real Estate Daily and subscribe to the newsletter. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show tomorrow. Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right. And don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video. And remember to watch the next one. You're going to love that one.